This is a story about the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we live out in the world, and the space between those two. It's about how we love, how we lose, and how we recover, or not, through the stories we make up in our heads. I'm Robin Rice, and this is also my story. Chapter 28. What do you want? As a fiction writer, we must know what our characters want. As a nonfiction writer, we must know what our audience wants. As the master storyteller of our life, we must know what we want. Let me be clear. The me of today wouldn't ever suggest that organizing our life around our surface wants is a good idea. It's a sales job and a con job at that. Everything in our culture teaches us to want, primes us to want. Our biology gears up our wants, namely to procreate, but also to adventure into new territory in search of evolution, or sometimes just food. Our psyche tells us to want to stay socially safe, but also to differentiate, be unique, special. Wants everywhere. It's the road to disappointment and sometimes disaster, because everything that goes up comes down, and everything that blooms dies. Once we accept that, it isn't a disappointment or a disaster, but that's easier to write than to live out. Even so, even with all that, we have to know enough of what we want to point our lives in a direction. Toward the end of our life, we'll be getting rid of excessive wants. By then, we'd have done our thing for long enough to know if we really wanted what we thought we wanted and adjust accordingly. We know what we want going forward without much thinking about it. If you're young, trust me on this. I realize I'm going back and forth here, but that's how it is with wanting. Different stories for different times of life, and a gazillion different directions to be pulled in. So, will it be mystery, romance, dark matter? Suspense, humor, a sandwich? Answers to every question or better questions? Next, it is critical to know what we will do for what we want, what we will sacrifice for. Time, money, integrity, getting off the couch. Will we take a risk and go on a quest or plunk down a chunk of money on a house to feel at least theoretically safe? What will we work for and fight against? There's no right answer and no one better answer than another. Only your answer. Let's get specific here. Make a list of what you want. Go ahead, I'll wait. Now make a list of what you'll give for it. Now whittle it down to the bare bones. What do you want most? What's the smallest satisfactory minimum? Also, what's overkill? Now put a price on it. How much would you pay? How much is too much? Now take it to the essence. Do you want a house in the country? Why? Peace? A garden? Your own eggs from your own chickens? A rooster to wake you up god-awful early so you can complain even while you grin about it? I recall that special perversity at one time in my life. Why do you want that thing you say you want? What do you think it will bring? What will it allow you to leave behind? Those questions help get us to essence. Now ask how far you will go for it, and how far is too far. Would you sell your grandmother? All your worldly possessions? Take a second job if what you want requires more money. Go through medical enhancements or strict dietary changes. Give up a true love? One heart's passion for another, as is sometimes required? At what point does what you really want become what you only sort of kind of maybe wanted? Or what about this? What will you long for if left behind? We all think we want what we have said we wanted, but after these questions, we may realize it's a lot more complicated than that. Or a lot more simple. The reason I bring this up now is that in good storytelling, you know enough of what you want and what you will sacrifice for to make your life a journey, a worthwhile journey, though you may not be able to assess that until the end. There's little story in sitting down by the side of the road and watching the mosquitoes eat you for lunch. You'd think I should not have to say this, but it's astonishing how few people have gone for what they really want. As for me, or some part of me, the Robin part likely, but hard to say for sure, I wanted only one thing: love. Enlightenment was great, but I'd already read the end of the story. Total bliss, aware of perfection, and being happy even to be sad. And it didn't always do me a lot of good as a human being. I wanted flesh, skin, scent, connection. I felt it was coming, was sure it was coming, knew that it had to be coming. Even though I was largely, if not completely, over my childhood of losses, there was an emptiness that I was sure only another human could fill. I wanted my Henry, mine, and I didn't know why he was being withheld. I was doing everything I could to live up to what I'd seen in my awakening, and I was serving humanity as best I knew how. Why wasn't that enough? What was I doing wrong? And what was wrong with me, Robin, that seemed to have been wrong all my life, given how alone I'd been for most of my years? How could I fix it? How could I get what I wanted when love was the one thing, maybe the only thing in life, we cannot make happen? I was all the more frustrated because I had all the will in the world to go out and get what I wanted. Yet love stubbornly resisted that will. What was I to do with all this energy, this hope, this passion, this dreaming, this raw, pure grade wanting? I wasn't sure. But I had magic and some knowledge about how it worked. By this time, a bit of skill, too. I decided it was time to make "he's right around the corner" become "there he is." As it turned out, though, I could not say exactly what made it happen when it finally did. There are two really good story possibilities, equally compelling. One I intended, quite literally, and the other I most certainly did not. Enter the labyrinth. The most exciting thing in the world, if you ask me, is falling in love. The most rewarding is being in love, staying in love, and living in love. You could say I'm a die-hard romantic, but it's worse. I don't know how to fully be myself when I'm not loving. It's just how I'm wired. Of course, this means the worst thing in the world is waiting for the spark you know to be your spark. It had been 7 years and counting. Let me set the stage for you, because my Henry was about to arrive. But I didn't know that, so I was sad. Right around the corner had become a kind of pathetic joke. I'd have given up if I could have. When you feel love is right there, just over the horizon, what else can you do but wait, even if you're no good at it? I was irritated. I could manifest Dark Crow from 100 Ways to Sunday in a boyfriend, complete with spooky near-death initiation. But not the character Ray, the heroine's one true love. Seemed unkind of the universe. I was tired of guys that were not men, or nice but not for me, or eager for tantric initiation but not commitment, or married. I'd drawn hard lines around that one finally. I met plenty of guys, but I had been trying to create the proverbial silk purse out of any old sow's ear, just to have something to work with. No go, no go, no go. I was definitely over my most recent encounter. Hard to call it a relationship. It had lasted almost a year, but never should have started. I had a personal rule that I wouldn't date guys named David. You know why. So he told me I could call him by his middle name. Who cares what that was? I called him that. I had no interest in him, an aversion, in fact, at first. But he was persistent, and one night he lured me onto a boat and found a way to kiss me. Somehow I woke up a year later feeling like I'd been in some kind of altered reality relationship. I disliked him as much as before that kiss. It was as if that magical little munchkin put a spell on me and then it finally broke. Thanks, guides, for watching out for me. Eventually. At least the universe had a sense of humor about it. The very tree I'd offered Not David a healing under was struck by lightning the night he cheated on me, split in two. Seemed the universe was more upset than I was. Anyway, he got the message. I was also impatient. I'd had prediction after prediction of that true love coming, the last few being as vague as all the others. First, from a black-haired old woman at an outdoor community fair in Baltimore. She had to have been 90 years old, with no teeth left, and a face so pruned it was hard to tell her ethnicity. She insisted he was someone I already knew. Not likely, I thought, but turns out she was right. I'd met him briefly almost a year before. Second prophet was old Bessie, who gave out predictions at the local bar at Lansdowne for $30 and whatever food you agreed to order while we waited our turn. We were all welcome so long as we were ordering food. My friend and fellow shaman Eve and I had been hanging out a lot, and every so often we'd have fun going to Lansdowne to sign up for the 30-minute reading by playing cards. Bessie was good and everyone knew it. There was always a line, though most looked far more desperate than we felt. More than once, Bessie told me that my true love was coming and that when he did, I could push him out the door, but he'd just come back through the window. Bit by bit, it gets better and better, she'd repeat, not only to me but to a lot of people, while chewing on a quarter of a potato chip. To save money, she made sure her one meal lasted all day. She read things into the 10 of diamonds and the ace of spades I could not see. She predicted Eve's love, too, a man in Ireland who was only half Irish. Turns out, Eve found him on a group travel tour to Ireland we led when the house we'd booked for 16 of us fell through. Yikes. His big house, the one that just happened to be available when we needed it, is now hers. He was half Irish, half Welsh, just like Bessie said. Eve lives in Ireland to this day. So that's the stage I'll set. A little desperation, a few peaks of hope, more than a few potato chips, and next, a plan. Manifestation was my intention. It was all the rage back then. Some still harp on it. Vision boards, mantras with your fingers all pointing in strange directions, magical spells if you dared into that territory. Get anything you want, or so the promise went. As with most things spiritual, I decided to create my own way with a little of this and a little of that. My plan was twofold. First, I would banish any curses holding me back, in Ireland for good measure, where the curse likely came from, if there was one. Second, I would set the stage for luxurious loveliness in bed. The curse banishing was as cool and spooky as it sounded. I was going back to Ireland, this time with Terry, on the week of New Year's Eve. It was not my year to be with the kids, and she always hated the holidays. I was still researching Do-Over's An Irish Story, and I felt I needed to be in Ireland again to do it justice. I'd also found some shamans there I wanted to meet. Researching a location for the book to take place in, I'd found a stunning Georgian mansion along the River Boyne in the town of Navan, just where I needed the big house in the book to be. The smaller house, divided in two, was pure fiction. The website said that the stunning home was available for rent. Perfect. Except when I called to book 2 rooms, I learned we had to book the whole place for a whole week at the dear price of €10,000. Gulp. Also, that the week we wanted was already taken. I told the woman about my book anyway, hoping that maybe I could come by for a quick tour between her bookings as the house cleaner turned the place over. We agreed to it, and she said she'd let me know the time. Then, in true my life is magic fashion, 2 days before Christmas, the woman contacted me by email. The family that had booked the place for the week had canceled. It was fully paid for in hours if we wanted it. "Are you kidding?" Terry asked. We laughed and laughed and laughed. Terry told me to tell the woman we would cancel our other bookings, and I told her I already had. Let the journey begin. The house was haunted, of course. But with only 2 of us, we were able to stay out of the most difficult rooms. Also, there were strange birds in the attic fans, adding to the creep. We decided to use the intensity of the place for our magic. We had New Year's Eve dinner out and returned early to banish any and every curse, known and unknown, ever to have been put upon us in this life or in any of our lives. Everything was set to go at the high, holy, magical hour of midnight. Now, I have to admit, it was more fun than serious, and it was a lot of fun. Also, I should probably explain that we didn't feel we had any real curses on us. No hexes, anyway. In shamanism, a curse can be anything, even an unwanted thought put upon us without our consent. My father telling me I was ugly, an old boss telling others she was incompetent, that kind of curse. And so it was that, with midnight snacks, champagne, our journals, and our best intentions, we made some mighty magic. I, Robin Rice, in the county of Navan, on December 31st of the year 2000 We wrote our banishments, read them to each other, signed our own and the others, and went to bed. I don't recall all I wrote or exactly how I put it, but I knew it included a long list of anything I thought might be keeping me from true love. The known and unknown covered any and all omissions. That was only part 1, though. Part 2 was to order up what I wanted, manifestation style. Today, I have a lot of, let's say, thoughts about manifestation as a sales job, but back then I just hoped it would work. This part I did at home. I'd read all about the Jim Carrey-style stories where you wrote a check for $10 million and waited for the cash to roll on in. I understood that you needed to feel what you wanted to feel in order to bring that vision in. Okay, so how did I want to feel? Luxurious, ecstatic, erotic, sensual, satisfied, not lonely, met, wildly uninhibited, adored, adoring, safe, adventurous, glorious. Most of all, partnered. I didn't want to do life without love. So how was I going to create that feeling? Invite it in, be enveloped in it. Write the Jim Carrey check, if you will. I decided to focus on my bed, my personal dreaming oasis. I started by buying the highest thread count sheets I could find, faint pink for a touch of love. A gorgeous handmade Amish quilt made with tiny rose calico fabric and dark maroon satin strips. So lovely to touch, so rich to look at. Big, fluffy pillows galore, satin pillowcases. Just looking at the bed, you understood. Something special is set to go on here. I was sending a message, and I intended that it get through. Next, though, I needed a ritual of invitation to keep sending that message. I knew the old adage that you didn't repeatedly ask for eggs and bacon from the wait person in a diner. You trusted the order that went in would, in fact, produce the meal. But I was beyond trusting at this point. 7 years of just around the corner, I remind you. I decided on rose petals, fresh, put around the bed every day. To keep them fresh, every 3 days I bought new flowers, tore off the new petals, surrounded my beautiful bed, and took the old drying up petals to release them into the earth or water. I felt the silky petals between my finger and thumb, rubbing them as if for good luck. I would repeat this ritual without fail until my message was clear, undiluted, and fully voiced in the language of the universe, which is the language of symbol. That went on for 7 months. 7 months. Every 3 days for 7 months, never once missing, never ever letting those fresh petals turn stale. And then, though my Henry had not yet arrived, one day the ritual felt complete. I could not have been more clear. I finished the final intentional ritual knowing I'd done all I could do. If there was no Henry after that, either manifestation was a joke and my curses far too powerful, or someone up there just didn't care. So is that what did it? Irish banishments and a long floral season? Hard to say, because someone or something else showed up to take the credit. It began unexpectedly one day when Eve and I were playing the way shamans do, trading work, this time another past life regression for me. I'd wondered if maybe David Lloyd George was hogging up all the romantic juice and I'd been left to fend for myself. His karma, now mine? Or was someone else getting in the way? I didn't know, and to be honest, I wasn't expecting much more than play. That's not exactly what happened. The moment I went down this time, down into timeless time to find a past life, my body froze and my attention was pulled up into the sky. There's no easy way to say this, no right way to ease into it either, because that's not how it happened. It was immediate. My fingers curled in on themselves, my body further stiffened, my throat tightened, like someone was squeezing it. Eve noticed. "What's going on?" she asked. "We are the 777s, I said. Slowly, only not me, not my voice, rather, not only my voice. "Where's Robin?" Eve asked, laughing, either not getting the severity of the situation or just not fazed. "Below," they eked out. "Well, I see her here," Eve insisted playfully. Again, we are I'm not going to use their voice, okay, but you get it. We are the 777s. Not my voice repeated. Clearly, it was my vocal cords. Clearly, I was there. I could listen in. I just could not respond as Robin. Or as my other self, which was... Where was my other self? "Why are you here?" Eve asked. Side note, keep in mind that today you can hear countless stories about this kind of thing, from channeling to alien abductions. Just search weird shit on YouTube. Back then, I was completely clueless. There was this guy named Seth, which a lady named Jane channeled. Strangely, Seth called her Rupert, and a man named Edgar Casey I'd heard of. But that was as far as my education went. Further side note, do you realize how much I don't want to tell you this bizarre stuff? I hope you do. And so began a conversation between Eve and the 777s, with me as Robin somewhere below, listening in. I wasn't sure what was with all the sevens, but 3 times 7 is 21, and that's the day of the month I was born on, so as a young girl I always felt an affinity to the idea of 3 sevens. Also, 7 had become a personal sign on my journey, and 3 sevens, all the more reason to pay attention to whatever was going on. So maybe they really were the 777s, or maybe they were just co-opting the name to get my attention. Either way, they had it. I was certain they were they, not in the gender-neutral use of they, though it felt like that too. I mean in the plural meaning. How many exactly I could not discern. When I tried to look at them, their numbers seemed to be going toward infinity. They were dots of light, like stars, collectively held together. They came from high up and to the left of me. As Eve asked questions, I slowly, very slowly, learned to use this new voice to find words and give answers. It was clear they were not coming from me. I had no idea what they would say. I was only the voice box, sounding like an echo to myself as they seemed to fight for each choppy word. They explained that they had been waiting for the right moment to come through, that I knew them. They then asked the greater being within me as Robin to corroborate this truth, that I knew them through sensation. I felt something in my heart area, familiar, excited, and hair raised on my rigid arms. This surprised me as Robin. I had no memory of meeting them before. They quickly grew more and more able to speak through me as Eve kept inquiring. They said they were from beyond our star system and yet from a place that was not a place, not from a material reality. It would be beyond our capacity to understand it, they insisted, because the design and origin was from well beyond Eve's or my conceptual limits. But they were happy, eager, in fact, to answer any questions we could come up with. "What do you want with Robin?" Eve asked. "It is essential that Robin learn to travel further into the greater universe," I heard myself say, third person. They suggested Robin could not only channel them, but also others from beyond the traditional realms of conceptual thought. They suggested I learn new modes of travel. I assumed they meant beyond the shamanic journey. Then to spend time exploring different realms. It was to be an education in the greater cosmos and beyond. I might explore color more fully, for example. each color was a spirit I could get to know. Eve asked how I would get there. They had no answer, only promised to guide Robin in the moment. After a while, Eve asked the most important question, one I had not thought of: if they were good. Probably not by your definition, they admitted. Good seemed irrelevant to them. I remember saying I would not be good when I woke up and wondered if those ideas were related. Eve took another tack. Is Robin safe with you? They further admitted that if Robin were to let them, they would eventually use her up until she burned out, and there was nothing left of her. I recall thinking, noted, dear 777s, thank you for your honesty and, not interested. Eve asked if they could be of any use to me, human Robin, here on Earth. They asked what Robin could possibly want. Eve mentioned I was unhappy. They seemed aghast to learn of it. Why? As they were asking why, I was asking myself, how could they get to me, speak through me, and yet not know me at all? I felt it was written across the sky in big, bold letters. Robin is confused, lonely, tired, bewildered, frustrated, angry, help! They were astonished, giving us the metaphor of myself as a farmer whose yield was so great and so consistent. How would anyone know that farmer had a broken leg? Well, she is lonely, Eve said point blank, and she wants a partner, a true love. Can you help with this? Gotta love Eve. She suffers no fools from any dimension. Yes, they said, surprising us both. How? Eve probed, checking to be sure of the territory we were entering into. What would we have to give for what we were going to get? That's what shaman friends are for. They seemed to need to collectively confer as we waited. We don't know yet, they finally said, but we will find a way. It was the leave it with me of alien speak. I don't think either Eve or I believed they would do a thing, and since I was becoming visibly exhausted, she thanked them and said we had to go. Come back soon, they urged. Not sure about that, I thought. It took a few minutes, but I regained control of my body. What in hell was that? I asked Eve, shaky as I sat up, my muscles sore from the extended contraction. In typical Eve fashion, she just shrugged. Beats me, but I think they're worth contacting again. I agreed to think about it. This was pushing every story boundary I had. If I were to become a channeler, at least in my mind, I would lose any sliver of credibility I had left. Strange, I told myself, too strange for me. I wouldn't have given it another thought, but one day, after my Henry finally arrived, Eve and I decided to visit them again. To be honest, we'd forgotten about the promise of help. How does Robin like her new love? They immediately asked after taking over my body. Eve assured them I liked him just fine. So either the 777s were responsible, or they just wanted credit. I didn't care much. My dream, my Mecca, my Henry was on my doorstep. He was exactly what I ordered, times 10. Enter your labyrinth at BeWhoYouAre.com.